If you guys choose to not communicate for 3 days or 5 days or a week because you got angry with one another, that creates such worry that you're wondering what your partner is doing. You're wondering whether or not they're cheating on you. So it's not like you can just come back and be like, hey, we're back together and everything's cool. Those things only grow the more you ignore them. Most relationships like ours don't fail all at once. They fail in small ways.
Foreigner Loves
Filipina!
I can tell you with Melanie and I, we were in a 3-year LDR relationship. And we made it through those 3 years and the 2 years of not physically being together. I think it was mostly because of communication. Because we talked every single day by video call. And we put a priority on that. But I think having that daily communication was key, don't you think?
Yeah, it really is. Even if it's not like a 24/7, having a conversation with your partner, maybe just 20 minutes or 10 minutes would be okay because we have that.
That was true of us. Yeah, we didn't have those huge long time.
Sometimes it's 5 minutes just to say good night or just to say, hey, I'm here, I'm having dinner. And that's okay. At least, you have a communication and at least your partner know that you're still there, that you're still alive or you still care about
Well, you're still invested in a relationship.
Yeah.
I think if we had at any point had a long break, I think that would have been very destructive.
Yeah.
Particularly, because when you're LDR, miscommunication can even be bigger because it's really easy to misinterpret things. And if you have a fight or a disagreement long distance, if you guys choose to not communicate for 3 days or 5 days or a week because you got angry with one another, that creates such worry that you're wondering what your partner is doing. You're wondering whether or not they're cheating on you. You're wondering whether or not the relationship's still together. Do they still love you? And it creates a lot of damage in the relationship. I can tell you, even in cases when Melanie knew that there was going to be a brownout and she wouldn't have Wi-Fi, or there was a typhoon or a storm on the way, she would communicate, hey, if I don't talk to you tomorrow, this is why. So there was good communication in those areas.
So you really need to let your partner know about all those details because, when you ghost someone, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, if you ghost in a long distance relationship, you could create such distrust that even if you agree to come back together, you've created a more fragile relationship because you're constantly wondering, when is this person going to ghost me again? When are they going to just disappear? And what were they doing when I didn't talk to them for a week? So it's not like you can just come back and be like, hey, we're back together and everything's cool. There's a lot of distrust and damage that was created. When there's a lack of transparency and a lack of trust in the relationship. Because if something has caused the other person to wonder about what you're doing or what your motives are, and wonders about your transparency, those things don't just fade away, guys. The concerns of infidelity or the concerns of what are their motives and what are they doing, maybe it's not around cheating, maybe it's around money, or maybe, what money are they hiding, or it could be a lot of different things. Those things only grow the more you ignore them, not the less. Now, I can tell you, in our relationship, we've chosen to share our locations on our phones so we can track each other, and we also share our passcodes. So Melanie can at any time go on my phone and she can check anything she wants. She can at any point check where I am. Now, some of that is for safety situations, and we've got examples where that actually came in really handy. From a safety standpoint, particularly when she first got here, I wanted to know where she was to make sure she was safe, because obviously she wasn't familiar with the area. But to this day, 7 years into our relationship and 4 years since she got to America, we still choose to do that. I know that's somewhat controversial. A lot of couples don't want to share their phone. They don't want to share their location. But I can tell you with us, I think it has been very, very healthy. What is your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of you there doesn't want to share location or doesn't want to share password, and that's okay. Well, in our relationship and relationship with Daryl, I really love how we shared our passcode together in our phone, because I feel like there's an assurance for me that, then Daryl didn't do anything because he shared his password to me and I can just open his phone without like not thinking about something like, oh, okay, maybe he's hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
And about the sharing location, it's not also like about like where she's going, but also for emergency purposes, especially that I'm not familiar on this place here, that this is not my home. So it's really also important for Daryl to know that where am I, especially when I have the accident.
Mhm.
See, like it's very helpful for me because Daryl like locate my location where my accident happened, and it's very helpful. And up until now, I kind of understand how sharing location with your partner is very important in your relationship.
Well, and I think the other area as far as transparency is, it kind of comes back to communication, is Melanie's been really good about letting me know if she's going to be doing something kind of out of the ordinary. So she normally, she's a teacher, she normally gets home around 4 o'clock, but if she is going to go out with a friend afterwards that she does occasionally, or she's going to go to go grocery shopping, she will let me know, because otherwise I would be here home working on one of these videos, and 4 o'clock would come and go, and I'd be like, where is she? And of course, it creates doubt. And I can tell you just a recent example that's kind of a small thing, but I think it was important, was I like to play poker. So 1 or 2 days a week, I go to the casino and play poker. And recently, I got invited to a home game where I'm not at the casino. I'm playing poker with the same guys, but it's at one of the guys' homes. And so I told her about that. I am going to play poker today, but I'm not going to be at the casino. I actually showed her the conversation between me and my buddy about where we're going to play. And she was like, no, I don't need to see that. Like, she didn't want me to feel like I had to show her. And I knew I didn't need to show her because she could track me if she wanted to. But I thought it was important that she saw the conversation so that I did not allow that little germ to start. That, oh, wait, all of a sudden he's at this house out in the middle of the country, and why is he there? And I didn't want that germ to even get roots. So I just showed her, and
Yeah, he knows me better because like sometimes when he said something that I don't like, it's still like in my mind, even like the next day and the next other day. So he knows that my mind is like circling and cannot like stop thinking about what happened. So it's good for Daryl that he do that to me.
So make sure you have good transparency with each other, whatever form that might take for you, whatever works for your relationship. We've all been in relationships probably in the past where you start arguing and one person maybe did something that was an offense, and then the other person gets upset and maybe yells or curses or yet calls a name, and then this person gets upset that you called them a name, and then it just keeps building and building and building, and the root cause of what started the argument gets totally lost in what is happening. And what could have just been a simple disagreement or a simple battle or what could have been ended very quickly with an I'm sorry turns into something that escalates out of control. And I'm proud to say I think we actually do a pretty good job of that we don't allow that to happen. So talk a little bit about the importance you think of that.
As for me, like in our relationship, I don't want, a person that kind of like level my angriness. You know what I mean? It's like I have a pride because I am still young, and then I have this person also that is so very prideful. So it's just not okay to have that, and that's why I'm so lucky to have Daryl because he is so matured in how to calm, when there's an argument in our relationship.
Well, and I think, guys, that's where it does kind of fall on us to some degree, and I know a lot of guys don't necessarily like that, but I think it's true, particularly if you're in an age gap relationship. You have to understand your Filipina is younger. She is going to be less mature, and so it is going to fall on you, maybe more than her, even if she's the one that created the offense, even if she's the one that did wrong. It's going to be incumbent on you to at least not escalate it. It doesn't mean that she doesn't have to say she's sorry. It doesn't mean she doesn't have to admit what she did was wrong if that was the case. But it means you can't build it into something more than it is. And she mentioned pride. Filipinos have a lot of pride, and they don't want to say they're sorry. And I think it's a bit of a cultural flaw that I hate to expose, but it is, where I'll tell you, Melanie has a hard time saying she's sorry. But
I'm learning.
You're learning. You're getting better. I can tell you, we recently had a situation where it wasn't even a fight. She was just in a bad mood because she'd been out washing her car and it was hot, and I was trying to comfort her, and she got, got all snotty with me, and I was like, okay. Now I could have got really offended, and I could have escalated, but I was like, all right, she's in a bad mood. I wasn't even sure why at the time, and I just walked away, went to the other room, and by doing that, it actually was a win for me because it made her feel bad.
That's really true.
Right?
Yeah, it's really like feel me like I feel so guilty that why I did that to Daryl, where in fact he didn't do something bad to me. So yeah, I mean.
So it's a real win, guys, because if I had all of a sudden got offended and we started a battle, then I would have somehow been the one that's wrong. You know how that is. But by just easing and stepping away, I think it solved it. One of the things that we tried to build our relationship on, and that I've tried to take a leadership role, is on kind of the saying of every fight doesn't have to have a winner. It's okay to say you're sorry, even if I think she's in more the wrong than me. I'll be quick to say I'm sorry, because to me it's more important that we have peace in our home. It's more important that we have peace in our relationship, and for me to prove that I'm right, because what I've learned is if I'm right and she's wrong, she knows it already. Okay, I don't have to prove it to her. So just say you're sorry, move on, and she'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's really funny. Like I dated Filipino same age like me, and so every time we have an argument, so it escalates things, and so it ends up like breaking up. Like, I don't want you anymore, and I did not feel that to Daryl, like where he is just only makes the argument into calm way, and he just leave me alone and let me have my moment. And yeah, it really does me realize that later on that, hey, maybe I need to learn, or I need to grow up, and I need to change my behavior. And I feel like do you think I'm progressing?
Yes, slowly, babe. Slowly. You need to learn the power of I'm sorry. A little bit. But we're getting there, guys.
We're getting there.
Another key moment is having patience, particularly in a key moment like when Melanie moved to America. Obviously, it was a time of great adjustment for her. It was a great adjustment for me because I had lived alone for a long time. And we had to be understanding to one another and be patient with one another, because there were a lot of adjustments going on, particularly early on, in trying to live together for the first time and her adjusting to America. A couple examples I can think of right away is Melanie is a very fun, vivacious person. But when she first got here to America, all of a sudden she became this shy person. And whenever we'd get together with my friends or my family, she would sit there, she'd hardly say anything. And honestly, it was a little embarrassing to me because I'm like, what, everyone's going to think that I've got this woman who's got no personality and she's dull. And she's not. She's quite the opposite. If someone wasn't speaking to her directly, she would just kind of fade into the background. Mm-hmm. And it took me patience for me to kind of first try to understand what was happening, why she was acting like that, and be understanding of the fact that she's going through a lot of adjustments. So that's one area that I think, patience was really important.
Yeah, you're really very patient to me that time, babe. And Daryl didn't even let me feel that he is upset. I'm also patient to you because every time we go out and then there's a huge traffic, or there's idiot that don't know how to drive or something like that. And he got so very upset, and I don't know, I'm just the kind of person that I don't want to be hearing a lot of yelling or a lot of cursing or a lot of bad words, and it makes me my mind, or it makes my body kind of, I don't know, bad mood too. And I'm very patient with that.
Yeah, you were. I will say my ugly side comes out when I drive. I'm not yelling at her, obviously. I'm yelling at the other driver. And I don't think I realized that it was really bothering you that much, and then she verbalized it. And I've tried to get better at it, but honestly, I'm not sure I've gotten that much better. Another area we really had to use our patience was we were LDR for 3 years and didn't see each other physically for 2 years. Obviously, that requires a lot of patience. And I think it, in a lot of ways, kind of proved our love and proved our relationship that we were able to get through those times. But it wasn't easy for either one of us, and it did require us being not necessarily patient with each other. It was being patient in the situation. And I do think it was an opportunity for us to watch how the other person reacted in an adverse situation where we both stayed faithful, we both kept moving forward, we both kept communicating.
And you really need, especially if you're in a long distance relationship, patience is really the key.
We've seen this situation, particularly in age gap relationship with some other couples, where the older guy, because he's older and maybe wiser and more experienced in life, he thinks that he doesn't really need to make the changes, that the Filipina needs to do all the adjusting because she doesn't know as much, she's less knowledgeable. And so he expects her to make all the adjustments to his culture. So in my case, America. And it can not only be insulting to the Filipina, but it's insulting to the Philippines and their culture. And if you marry a Filipina, you got to understand you are trying to marry two cultures together, and so you have to be willing to make some compromises on both sides.
I need to also adapt, like eating American foods, and the same thing with Daryl, that he also needs to adapt, at least try or eat our food. And
yeah, I mean, I've obviously had to try to adopt some of your culture. Obviously, some of the food, which are, some Filipino food is easy to like, some is a little harder to like because it's very different than what we're used to. And I'm willing to try anything. I think I've proven that. And so, that's something I've had to try to adapt to. But also, like when they have their Filipina parties and get-togethers, I'm not a karaoke guy, but I will participate in doing karaoke when we get together with her friends because I know it's important to her. But it's not something that I would normally do, sit down and do karaoke.
If you're just gonna let your Filipino do all the adjustment or all the adaptation, then it would be unfair for her, and that would be not okay. That would be very destructive.
So how you deal with family pressure is another key point, particularly if you're going to be in an age gap relationship that some people have really strong feelings on. Particularly here in the West, that all of a sudden you're going to bring a Filipina to your home country, and she's a lot younger, and you might have kids that are similar ages, you might have parents, you might have other people who don't agree with their relationship. And if they don't agree, that's one thing, but if they're disrespectful to your Filipina, you've got to learn how to deal with that. You can't allow other people's opinions to influence and to hurt your relationship and to hurt your Filipina. Or another example might be coming from the Filipina side. Luckily, this is not something we've had to deal with, but we know a lot of people who have. And that is when the Filipina family is expecting a lot of money being sent back and setting boundaries in that area.
Some of the families back there still wanted to have their daughter send their money every month or all the time, or sometimes they get upset if it's just small money that the daughter sent it to them. Well, you really need to set boundaries, because if not, then that will also hurt the relationship that you have here in America.
We've all heard the stories of the honeymoon period of a relationship when everything is great, everything is fantastic, and it's often because you treat each other really well when a relationship first starts. But one of the keys to a relationship, and that we've certainly found with ours, is being consistent in those things over time. And we all know what some of those things are. They're really obvious. Normally, early in a relationship, you're telling the person how much you love them. You're telling them how beautiful they are. You're very expressive. You're doing public displays of affection. One I can think of that I've really tried to be consistent on, and I think I have been, is when Melody goes to work, when she comes home, I make sure that I'm normally on the couch working, or at the table working, and I make sure I get up and greet her when she gets home. And I've done that from the very beginning, because I think it's important when someone comes home from work or comes home from whatever, that you let it be known you're glad they're there. And so I think that kind of consistency, even though it's a small gesture, I think it's very important.
Yeah, and even when I go to work, I make sure that I say goodbye to Daryl or show affection to
Yep.
him that, hey babe, I'm leaving. So
One of the other examples I can think of is opening the doors for Melanie. I've just grew up that that's the way you're supposed to be. And so when we go into a restaurant, I generally open the door for her.
Yeah.
I still open the doors for her on the car. And so those little gestures do mean a lot, and I think it's important. If you did them in the beginning, it's important that you continue to do them. In fact, we have a couple we know that's going through some problems right now. We're not sure if the relationship's going to last. And I remember last time she was here, her talking to you about how he wasn't doing any of those little gestures anymore.
Yeah. So back when I was dating a Filipino, they are just good in the beginning, but then like they're not doing it. They're not being consistent with what they're doing. Like they're not saying I love you anymore when the relationship goes to 2 months or 4 months, and and it's very different to Daryl because Daryl is very good with that.
So if you develop patterns early in the relationship, you better be willing to continue to do them, because once you stop doing them, it does get noticed by the other partner, and it's a sign that maybe the love is gone or you just don't care as much as you do. So guys, let's be consistent. Something else that we have found is important in our relationship is not keeping score. And what I mean by that is not keeping tabs on what offenses your partner has made or something that they didn't do, and keeping a tab on, who's done more things right and who's done more things wrong, or maybe it's about chores. Who's the last one that did the chores and didn't do the chores, or who said I love you first and who said I love you second, and all those type of things. It gets very destructive whenever you become a scorekeeper in the relationship. It's more important that you focus on the health of your relationship than trying to prove that you're better than your partner or you're more right than your partner.
Yeah, and if you feel that you think that, like why he's not doing it, just remember about the sake of your relationship. Like you don't need to do like no keeping score in the relationship. Just do what you're supposed to do to make the relationship like in peace. The relationship should be helping each other, not like in competition.
Right.
Like, oh, I need to do this and you need to do this more. It's not about that. It needs to be helping. Like if your partner is sick, then he cannot do anything because he needs to rest and he needs to take care of his body. So
well, in my experience, at least with you, has been if I do something out of kindness or I do something that I know is helpful to you, I don't need to make a big point of it because you do notice it. So, and then it makes you want to reciprocate in kindness. So instead of reciprocating darts at each other, throwing darts at each other, well, she didn't do this, so I'm not going to do that. Well, why don't you show kindness to your partner, even if she doesn't deserve it? Because you know what? That's going to make her feel like she needs to do the same for you.
That's why you need to have a give and take in a relationship.
So another key is not letting small things build into big problems. And I think that can be particularly true with Filipinas because Filipinas don't like direct conflict. So if you start to notice something wrong in the relationship, you notice her being a little distant, you better pay attention to that because she probably isn't going to tell you that there was something you did that upset her or whatever it was. She's probably just going to distance herself from you. And it won't be like it's going to be an earth-shattering thing, but you'll notice it if you pay attention. And that's something I've tried to pay attention to because I know if I don't bring it up, if I don't discuss the small thing, it can grow into big things.
Yeah, and it's really true. It will stuck in our mind and it becomes like a bigger issue.
Yeah.
And you know that it's already affected to you or to the both of us. Is he really pay attention if like I'm being distant or if like I'm feeling sad or like he knows that something's wrong with me and he will talk to me, hey, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? And he's really good at that. So
well, and guys, it maybe shouldn't have to be that way, okay? Maybe they should take some responsibility. But my experience is you're going to have to try to be the leader there. Again, if you're in an age gap relationship in particular, and you're the older person, you're the more mature person, she might just be acting her age, okay? And you have to understand, you didn't always act real mature when you were her age either. So sometimes that burden does fall on us more, but I don't want to make it sound like it's all us. Obviously, they've got to do it. But I do think If you're going to be the leader of your family, sometimes that means you got to do things that are not always comfortable. Most relationships like ours don't fail all at once. They fail in small ways that are ignored and pushed aside. A conversation that's never had, a doubt that's never addressed, or a pattern that's not corrected. So if you're in a relationship like this, like we are, make sure you pay attention to these patterns, because if you notice them, it's the difference between fixing your relationship and letting it fade away. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.